There is a moment in Death Note where Light writes a name and almost throws up. His hand shakes. He questions himself. For a few seconds, he's horrified by what he's done. There's hesitation in his hand, fear in his eyes. 37 episodes later, that same person can sacrifice innocent lives without blinking, and that's exactly why anime writes fallen heroes better than Hollywood. Because most Hollywood stories think corruption is a moment. Anime understands it's a process, a slow one, an uncomfortable one. The kind that happens so gradually you don't even notice it until the person you started with is completely gone. And honestly, that's a lot scarier than any supervillain. The fallen hero is one of the oldest stories ever told. A good person bends, then bends again, then starts making compromises they never thought they'd make, until one day they wake up as the very thing they swore to destroy. Sounds simple, but for some reason, Hollywood keeps struggling with it. Anime doesn't. And the reason why reveals something fascinating about how each medium thinks audiences experience stories. The biggest difference is patience. Anime is willing to sit in the uncomfortable middle, the part where nothing dramatic happens, where the hero is still technically a hero, where every bad decision still sounds reasonable. Light Yagami is the perfect example. Before The Notebook, he was Japan's top student, brilliant, isolated, and bored by a broken system he believed no one could fix. His ideals weren't evil, they were understandable. He began by killing criminals, then protected his secret, removed obstacles, and finally innocent people, each step feeling logical. Kira wasn't a new personality, but Light's unchecked ambition, freed by anonymity. Death Note slowly builds this descent, proving corruption is an accumulation, not a twist. Its real message is that monsters emerge from people who refuse to admit they're wrong and keep choosing power over humanity. And anime keeps doing this. Take Eren Yeager. He begins as a boy who simply wants to destroy Titans, but as Attack on Titan expands, so do its moral questions. Raised inside the walls, Eren defines freedom as the removal of anything that restricts him, a flaw established from the start. The rumbling isn't a betrayal of his character, it's the logical end of his belief that true freedom requires eliminating every threat, even the outside world. The story becomes even more unsettling through the Attack Titan's ability to see future memories, creating a closed time loop where Eren's past and future shape each other. This raises a haunting question. Did Eren choose his fate, or was he always destined to follow it? His declaration, "I am free," is tragically ironic as he embraces a path he has already witnessed. Eren's story is disturbing, not because he changes, but because we understand exactly why he does. Lelouch follows a similar pattern. He begins Code Geass fighting against an oppressive empire. His goals are understandable. His anger and desire for change are understandable. The tragedy isn't that he's wrong about Britannia. It's discovering what he's willing to sacrifice in order to defeat it. Every victory demands another compromise. Every compromise makes the next one easier. By the time the cost becomes unbearable, he's already too far down the road to turn around. Then there's Homura Akemi, possibly one of the most fascinating examples of all, because her story begins with something incredibly simple: love. She wants to protect someone she cares about. That's it. No evil plan, no hunger for power, just love. But over time, that love transforms into obsession. She becomes willing to reshape reality itself because she believes she knows what's best. The feeling never disappears. It simply becomes something unrecognizable. And that's terrifying. Because sometimes the thing that destroys a person isn't hatred. Sometimes it's affection taken to its absolute extreme. Now, let's talk about Hollywood. And let's be specific. Because the problem isn't that Hollywood can't write fallen heroes. The problem is that Hollywood frequently starts with the ending. The city burns, betrayal happens, the hero becomes the villain, and then the writers work backward. The destination comes first, the journey second. Daenerys Targaryen is probably the most famous example. For years she was presented as a liberator, flawed, proud, capable of cruelty, but she was still driven by the desire to break unjust systems. Then season 8 arrives, and suddenly we're watching her burn a surrendered city alive. The audience reaction wasn't outrage because she became a villain. It was outrage because the transition didn't feel earned. People can accept a hero falling. What they struggle to accept is a shortcut. The destination arrived before the journey. In this perspective, Anakin Skywalker best exposes the challenge of writing a believable fallen hero. On paper, his story is perfect. A slave child who wants to save everyone he loves, a war hero burdened by impossible choices, a husband hiding a forbidden marriage, and a man slowly manipulated by the galaxy's greatest Sith. His fall should feel inevitable and heartbreaking. The prequels capture key moments, the Tusken Raider massacre and his horror after betraying Mace Windu, but often rush past the quieter conflicts. Anakin is torn between the Jedi's ideals of detachment and a life defined by love, fear, and responsibility. He's asked to suppress attachment while carrying the fate of the galaxy. That's where the Clone Wars transforms his character. Across 7 seasons, it shows his growing distrust of authority and willingness to break rules for noble reasons. His forced choke to save Ahsoka isn't driven by cruelty, but love, highlighting the gap between heroic motives and dangerous methods. The Mortis arc confronts him with visions of becoming Darth Vader, while Ahsoka's wrongful expulsion confirms his worst fears about the Jedi's hypocrisy. Obi-Wan's staged death further erodes his trust, making it believable that he later hides his fears about Padme from the one person who might have saved him. By the time Revenge of the Sith begins, Anakin's fall no longer feels like a plot requirement, it feels like the only path left. The ultimate tragedy is that his desperate attempt to prevent Padme's death is exactly what causes it, leaving him broken, alone, and with nothing but the Sith to cling to. Of course, the West gets this absolutely right sometimes. Walter White is the gold standard. A dying man wants dignity, security, control, perfectly understandable motivations. Vince Gilligan said he wanted to take Mr. Chips and turn him into Scarface. But it takes 5 full seasons to get there, 60 episodes of consistent moral erosion, where every compromise creates the next compromise, every lie creates the next lie. Breaking Bad takes 5 seasons to explore the 18-month rise and fall of Walter White in intimate detail. The genius of its pacing is the writing team's ability to execute multiple levels of storytelling with the same precision. Every moment feels both earned and vital to the fate slowly creeping toward its characters. The journey feels organic, just like Light Yagami, just like Lelouch, just like the best anime examples. And then there's Zuko. His journey isn't a straight line. He makes mistakes. He backslides. At critical moments, he chooses wrong, not because the writers wanted a shocking twist, but because that's genuinely what Zuko would do. His redemption matters because his fall was voluntary. He chose his path. So what do Walter White and Zuko have in common with Light Yagami and Eren and Anakin's Clone Wars arc? Time. And this is the real answer, the one hiding behind everything we've talked about. It's not just that anime writers are more patient than Hollywood writers, it's that anime as a medium structurally rewards patience in a way films simply cannot. Death Note ran for 37 episodes, Attack on Titan across 4 seasons, Fullmetal Brotherhood had 64 episodes, The Clone Wars had over 130, a Hollywood film gets 2 hours, maybe 2.5. A franchise blockbuster juggling 20 other characters gets even less. When you only have 2 hours to tell a complete story, corruption almost has to be a plot point, a scene, an event, a twist. Because you don't have room for it to be a process, anime has room. It can spend 3 episodes on a single conversation. It can let a character sit with a bad decision for an entire season before they feel the consequences. It can show you the same person making slightly worse choices over months of storytelling until the accumulated weight becomes unbearable. That's why Breaking Bad worked the way it did. 60 episodes across 5 years. Vince Gilligan zoomed in on the step-by-step process of every character's machinations, a continued evolution, a moral descent of its protagonist. It was operating more like a serialized anime than a Hollywood film. And when Hollywood tries to do fallen heroes in 2 hours, you get Anakin Skywalker in the prequels, full of potential, badly compressed. You get Daenerys Targaryen, a character whose destination arrived before her journey. You also get Wanda Maximoff, whose emotional collapse in WandaVision felt earned over 9 episodes, then got fast-forwarded into villainy and Multiverse of Madness because franchise scheduling demanded it. The writing isn't always the problem, sometimes it's the clock. Hollywood often starts with the villain and works backward. Anime starts with the human being and follows them all the way down, and it follows them slowly, episode by episode, season by season. The kind of pacing that lets you watch a person rationalize themselves into someone unrecognizable. That's why the best anime fallen heroes feel so honest. They aren't corrupted by destiny, or genetics, or a single bad day. They're shaped by choices, small choices, reasonable choices. The kind of choices real people make every day. Because that's how people actually lose themselves. Not all at once, not in a dramatic explosion, not with villain music playing in the background. It happens quietly. A compromise here, a justification there, a line crossed, then another, until eventually the person staring back from the mirror isn't the person you thought you were becoming. Which brings us back to Light Yagami. At the beginning of Death Note, his hand trembles. In the end, it doesn't. That's the tragedy. What do you think?